NBC and IFBB Pro League Vice President. This will be your 2026 Pittsburgh Pro recap for men's physique. And before we get into the recap, I'm going to say, got to give props to this division specifically. What ended up being the guys that placed 1st through 5th did not have to do this show. All 5 of these guys are already qualified for the Olympia. 5 of the top guys in the world laying it on the line, not only competing against each other, where obviously you never know who's going to come out on top. It's very easy to take a loss as only one person can win, but also giving up-and-coming guys the opportunity to stand next to them and potentially beat them. They didn't know. Guys that were like Francisco, Asai, that looked amazing. These guys are Olympians, but they're people that are ascending. I mean, the top 10 in this lineup was unbelievable. All Olympians. All crazy physiques. That's what generates excitement. That's what brings more fans, and that's what brings more opportunities into the bodybuilding world. So I definitely want to give them all a shout out. Thank them all for coming to the show, but also laying it on the line because this is something that every single division can benefit from. Competing with the best multiple times a year, definitely more than once. Doing a show that is like this generates so much excitement. So hopefully going forward, we definitely still see it in this division, but we also see it some more in some other divisions. Getting into the recap, top 2, Chiron and Ali, both brought amazing packages. First, we'll get into Chiron. What an improved overall look that he brought, even from his best before, which he's brought some amazing packages to the stage before in his career. This, by far, his all-time best. In my opinion, one of the best ever men's physique looks that has ever been on the IFBB Pro League stage. It is up there for all-time best. Probably only a couple other physiques that you could say that about. What I should say is packages that you could say that about. This one is up there. Conditioning and peak, absolutely next level. This guy had striations going on his outer lats when he was doing his squeeze to get into the back pose. Unbelievable. The separation was so deep. The physique was so clean. The core, very detailed, abs deep, core waistline in all the way, taper great. What I think also was greatly improved on him, other than everything I just said, was the arms and the shoulders were symmetrical with each other. What else they also did? They matched with his torso. They matched, I thought, really, really well with his torso. His chest, at times he used to have big arms, big shoulders, and then all of a sudden his chest looked really, really thick and he would be bigger than a lot of the guys in the division. Somehow he streamlined down a little bit, but still keeps bubbly muscle with the shoulders and the arms so they don't look too big, but they match with the torso. The chest super full, and again, like I said, into that midsection. And of course, he has more lower body development than he did in the past, so a very balanced overall look. For me, my feedback for him was try and do the same exact thing at the Olympia. That's all he needs to do. I don't think there's anything else that he needs to tweak with the physique that he brought to this stage. Going into that, Ali in second. Obviously for Ali, he is known for his conditioning, bringing in a trademark peak, trademark look. I think still for Ali, he brought really good conditioning, but for Ali himself, it wasn't quite his peak. We've seen him harder and we've seen him more conditioned. In my opinion, in New York last week, his peak was a good bit better than it was this week. So for a lot of athletes, how Ali looked would not be considered missing your peak because his conditioning was still great. He still popped. Everything was still really good. But conditioning for him, and then obviously when you have someone that was peaked as perfectly as Chiron, you saw just that little bit of difference in conditioning. So that's number one. If Ali hits it, he's as dangerous as ever, as like we've all seen. I think he's made improvements with his physique. I think his waistline has gotten a little bit smaller as well. Really for him, the main improvement that I think he can use is just getting some more thickness onto the chest for the Olympia this year. He's another guy that is extremely dangerous to take that title home. So really, really cool to see him come out as second place in the Olympia, put it all on the line with these guys, like I said before. In third place, we had Edvon. Edvon, I think, brought a very, very improved look just from New York the week before. Waistline was smaller. He did a much better job of staying on his abs the whole entire time in the front pose. Again, I think his core is very solid. Arms and shoulders now match, again, his torso. Chest looks good. For Edvon, I think when you look at his core and the deepness and the detail of his midsection compared to Ali or how Chiron was this show, you can see he can use just a little bit more there. But generally speaking, really, really good look from the front. From the back, biggest difference from New York. We saw depth and thickness and detail in his back that was not there in New York. It was definitely, the back looked much flatter in New York. This week, it looked much, much better. This, I thought, showed off the big improvements he's made from the Olympia last year. If you go look at his back in the Olympia last year to what it looked like now, big improvements. If he can go back to the drawing board, keep doing that again, that back is going to be able to hang with also anybody in the pro league. So Edvon, I think, is moving in the right direction, and he's a sleeper for upsetting people going forward. Finally, in fourth place, we had Aaron. For Aaron, the physique itself looked good. Main thing was his conditioning was a good bit behind the three guys that were ahead of him at this show. Obviously, I said Kyron's conditioning was basically perfect. Ali's was still very good. Edvon's was still really, really good as well. Aaron just wasn't in that same condition as these other three. And when you're standing next to three guys that conditioning is really showing through, you have to be in that same conditioning. Obviously, we know how good his back is. His structure is great. He has good balance. He has nice detail. He has a nice core and a nice waist, but it just needs to be in that same condition as the three guys ahead of him. So that's what his goal is for the Olympia. And again, this show is basically like a mini Olympia. So you see, if you're not on 100%, you have no idea where you can fall with these guys because these guys are leveling up so much constantly. So they're all very, very close, these four. Obviously, we have a couple more guys that weren't in this show that are going to be in the mix at the Olympia. It's going to make for a really, really exciting this year. This will be your 2026 Pittsburgh Pro recap for Classic Physique. So in Classic Physique, again, following up the New York Pro, unbelievable quality in the top 10, even a little bit past the top 10 at this show. Olympia physiques littered throughout. Top 4, super impressive here. This go around, I even think that Diego and Niall both brought significantly better conditioning than they brought the week prior. You have Branch and Jaehoon that also looked incredible with incredible conditioning. We'll go into this basically. First, we'll go into Niall. I think Niall, night and day difference from New York. Obviously, you see more overall fullness and pop to his physique. The conditioning was definitely deeper. The separation definitely deeper. This is the physique that I think he's been waiting to show he is definitely a threat coming into the Olympia this year. Again, front double bicep. He definitely has improved his arms in this pose, also flexing them better and more correctly. In the front double bicep, you see the overall balance. Everything flows very, very well. The legs look great. The separation, the sweep, the overall size. Waistline is non-existent. And here, when we compare the front double bicep and look at, let's say for Diego, for example, Diego doesn't have quite that sweep on the quads in the front pose. And also for Diego, which I think is a big thing for all of his front poses, you see the shallowness of his chest, specifically his upper chest. It looks just shallow compared to Niall's. It doesn't have that same fullness, even though you see it on his lower pecs. So that's a major difference here in the front pose, and I think in all the front poses, and is why Niall's look is so pleasing. So Niall's front double looked great. I think basically between Niall and Diego obviously has one of the best back double biceps in Classic. For Niall, his back double improved tremendously from the prior week. He still needs a little bit more depth and thickness to it. He can use a little bit more width to it in that back double as well, but very, very improved from New York Pro. For me, when comparing these two together, that is the only pose that Diego took this week. Niall also fixed his side chest. Again, upper body wise, lower body wise, Niall still needs a little bit more of that leg width from the side in that side chest. But when you compare him to Diego's lower body is obviously a little bit better, but you see the size of the arms, and also, again, you need more thickness to the chest. So even the width across the top and just how big they look in that upper body in full, Niall takes that for me. Niall takes the side chest pose this week with the market improvement in conditioning. So really between them, I think 4 poses to 1. Niall takes it. If he can improve that back and that side leg width just a little bit more, wow, can't wait to see him at the Olympia. For Diego, basically, like I said, conditioning I thought was even better than the week prior. However, I think, you saw a little bit more of his flaws now with Niall being so conditioned and much fuller. So really for Diego, adding, I think, number 1 is more thickness to that chest, especially the upper chest. That affects the front double. That affects the ab and thigh. That affects the favorite Classic pose. That affects the side chest. So basically, other than the back pose, that chest is the number 1 priority for him. Arms look good from the front and from the back when they're raised up, but from the side, you can see they need a little bit more size. And then again, in the front poses, you can see he just doesn't have quite the quad sweep that Niall has. So if he can add a little bit more sweep to those quads, because he has good leg width, even from the front without the sweep, the leg width is solid, but needing a little bit more sweep, and then that's going to help all of his front poses. So those little details are what he has to work on going to the Olympia. But again, this guy was 6th at the Olympia, so he's one of the top guys in the world, and he is an extremely tough guy to handle. Even though I think if he just improved the chest and nothing else, that makes him much more dangerous going into the O. In 3rd place, we had Branch. Really for Branch, the overall best physique he has ever brought to the stage. As you see, lower body wise, his quads are insane from the front. The overall leg width, but the sweep and the balance to the quads just of themselves, absolutely crazy. Front double bicep brings a very nice taper into a nice small waist. Again, the conditioning was next level. He put his arms down and would just even move his arms a little bit. The chest was so full and striated. Crazy look from the front. Really, I think for Branch, the number 1 thing he can improve on is the width and the thickness to his back. I think that's the number 1 thing that he's missing. Adding a little bit more of that width, obviously, of course, in the back double bicep, doing those things helps that pose. But adding a little bit more width, that's going to help him in the front double bicep. That's also going to help him when he hits his favorite classic poses that he was hitting. He just needs a little bit more of that because I think upper body wise, when it came to the back and the width, he was just a little bit behind Diego. However, for me personally at this show, I think Branch was pushing Diego very, very hard because conditioning wise, you can see his conditioning was next level. I think also for Branch, he can use maybe just a touch more size to his arms as well. But if that back and he had that just a little bit more width, but also more thickness, I think he could be pushing both these guys that were ahead of him. So for Branch to push two guys that were 5th and 6th in the world last year with the physique that he brought, this guy goes back to the drawing board. Obviously, I know he needs to do some more shows. He needs to get qualified for this year, but he's able to go back to the drawing board and make a little bit more improvements. Yeah, this guy has such a classic look, and the conditioning that he brought, if he can always do this, he's going to be a huge threat to everybody. In 4th, we had Jaehoon. Jaehoon brought a very similar package to what he did to New York. Very thickly muscled, very well conditioned. Really for Jaehoon, number one thing is width. He, out of the top 4, needs the most width out of all these guys. You can just see the width and the taper in Jaehoon is different, on him compared to the 3 guys ahead of him. That's number one thing. More thickness to the back as well. But really overall, he's made such improvements to his physique. So hopefully he can go back and really dig in and make these improvements as well. But really impressive showing by all 4 of these guys, and they brought great energy and just an overall excitement to the crowd at the show.